Hello, the purpose of this tutorial video is to show you how to use the monoDrive software to create custom scenarios. Oftentimes a customer is going to have some specific scenario in mind they'd like to test their control system or perception system with, and we'll walk you through how to create a scenario, record it, so that it can then be used in replay mode or in the replay step mode for testing control systems and perception systems. So first off, when the software first opens, we'll be loaded on the default map, which right now is Almono. What we're going to do is we're going to start by, which is a blank empty map. We'd like to create a new map that we're going to build the scenario on. So we're going to save the current as a new map. So let's do that now. This scenario that I'm going to run us through is going to be creating a situation where we have a faster vehicle that is going to overtake a slower vehicle and merge into its lane, a commonly requested scenario by customers. So I've given a name, Almono P overtake, so we'll save that. And this will take a moment. And when we create these individual maps like this, we can essentially store these scenarios for editing later, additions, or just for regenerating the replay files. So in this case, we'd like some long stretch where we can set our vehicles down for this scenario. So first thing we need is some vehicles. So in the contents folder down here at the bottom, you can see in Vehicles Volume 1, Vehicle Blueprints, we have several vehicles to choose from. It's not super critical what vehicle you select for the scenario, as these can be changed in the replay mode. So after they've been recorded, the actual vehicles themselves can be changed to different ones in the replay. So I'll start off by grabbing one of these vehicles and dropping it into the scene. So we'll grab this two-door sedan, and we can just drop it on whichever lane we're interested in. Now you'll notice the vehicle is facing the wrong direction. This is the right lane. It's not really important that you reorient the vehicles to be facing the correct direction, as when the scenario starts, they will automatically snap to the closest lane, and they will reorient themselves in the correct direction on the lane. So now one thing that we'd like to be able to do then is to set the speeds for the vehicles in our scenario. You can see over here in the details panel for our currently selected vehicle, there's a number of settings. So in this case, we have this sedan here that we'd like to overtake some other vehicles in the scene. So let's start by giving it a desired speed. So in this case, 35 miles per hour. And we'll have it so that it starts off moving at 35 miles per hour down this little stretch of freeway. And it's essentially as easy as that. Once the scenario starts to play out, this vehicle will be driving at 35 miles per hour down this lane. And it'll continue to drive and control at that speed and maintain its lane as long as the simulation runs. So one thing we can do is we'd like to populate this scenario very quickly. So we can also copy and paste vehicles. So for example, this vehicle we've already laid down, the two-door sedan, we can click Control-C to copy it, and then Control-V to paste it. Now there's actually two vehicles sitting on top of each other. By grabbing any of these axes, we can drag the other vehicle to a new location. And as you can see, I've moved it over here. So now we have two vehicles in the same lane. So we need some other traffic to overtake in our scenario. So let's grab this little hatchback here, and we'll drag him over into the other lane. Okay, so in this case, this vehicle is traveling at a slower speed and we'd like to overtake it. So let's give it a little bit of a slower speed here at 25 miles per hour. Okay, so at this point, we essentially have enough actors to at least interact with each other for our scenario, but typically there's going to be a lot more traffic in the scene. And we'll come back to that in populating the scene in a moment. But for now, what we'd really like to do is we want this vehicle to overtake the hatchback. Currently, it'll only be going faster, but we want it to actually change lanes and merge into the same lane as the hatchback. To do that, what we can do is drop what are referred to as lane change trigger boxes, which you can, in the modes box in the top left corner, if you select that, you can type in lane, and you'll see that it automatically started to pull up everything that's sort of lane. So we have this lane change trigger box. Similar to the vehicle, we can grab that with our mouse, and we can drag and drop it somewhere into the scene. So in this case, I'll drag it somewhere down the road. What these boxes allow us to do is to change the behavior of the vehicle. So when a vehicle hits one of these trigger boxes, it'll affect some sort of new desire in the control system. So we can see over here in the details panel several settings. So for example, we want lane change control. So what we can do here is select what we'd like the vehicle to do when it hits the box. So in this case, we'd like it to change into the right lane. So we can select request to change to right lane. If we were trying to go to the left lane, there's an option for that. And these are requests. The vehicles do have AI, and they will try not to hit each other, rear end each other, etc. And so if we request to change lanes, but there's already a vehicle there, the vehicle will refuse our request. Similarly, when vehicles reach intersections, if we'd like them to take specific turns at an intersection for our scenario, we can likewise check one of these boxes, such as left turn, right turn, or maintain the center lane. Additionally, we can affect the speed of the vehicle, as it's typically desirable to accelerate when you're overtaking a vehicle. We can set a speed here that is faster than what our initial vehicle speed was, 40 miles per hour. So at this point, we have the essential features in this scenario to generate a lane merger and overtake the vehicle. So with that, why don't we see how this plays out? As we can see, the faster vehicle is overtaking, and we successfully overtook and merged into the other lane. Now you'll notice that the vehicle right behind it didn't, and that's because it would have collided with the hatchback had it tried to change lanes at that point. Now you might notice that the camera is sometimes difficult to control. It may be too fast or too slow. You can select camera speed in the top right and drag that to a more appropriate speed. As you can see now, the camera moves much, much slower. This can be useful when you need to focus on a selected area. Okay, so we've already successfully set up the important features in our scenario, but perhaps we'd like to populate the scene with more vehicles to create a more dynamic situation so that the perception system is seeing many different vehicles and we're not just in this sort of canned toy scenario. So why don't we drag and drop some more? So I'll grab an SUV, we can toss him over here, give him a speed. And maybe I want some more SUVs, so I can Control C, Control V, populate the other side of the road. We can toss some four-door sedans in here. We can give them different speeds to create a more dynamic environment. And we'll just do this for a few more vehicles. If we want, we can even add some extra vehicles that have different, that are going to try and, oops. Okay, and so now we have kind of a busy road section here. So for the section of time that we're recording, we'll have a fairly lively set of vehicles. All right. So why don't we check and see how our scenario will play out now? All right, with that, we seem to have a fairly nice scenario that we've set up. So the next question is, how do we record this for the replay or the replay step modes for testing perception control? So one additional thing we need to add to our empty scene now is the state sensor. The state sensor is responsible for recording all of the dynamic actors in our scene. So to do that, in this case, I'm going to select the vehicle that I'm considering to be the ego vehicle or the control vehicle that we're most interested in. So I've selected that vehicle, and what I'm going to do now is add a state sensor to the vehicle. So if we click on Add Component in Details, again, we can use the search here to look for the state sensor. So I start typing in state, it came up, we'll select it, and this gives us a state sensor. The next thing we need to do is select the type of streaming media we're going to use. monoDrive is designed to use many different types of streamers, such as TCP and UDP, which we use to communicate with clients. But also, in this case, we'd like to just record our scenario to file. So we're going to select the File Streamer component, which gave us a file streamer. Under file settings, we can see what the name of the replay is going to be. And right now it's defaulting to replay.json, which is not a great name. Let's give it something more detailed. So why don't we call it overtake replay.json. And so now we can record this to overtake replay.json. Let's see. One additional thing we'll want to do is set the sample rate. So this is the rate at which we're going to record the state of all of the vehicles in the simulation. And basically, it is in hertz. And so if we set this to say 5, then 5 times a second we'll take a recording. If we need finer time steps, we can set this to a higher number. But for now, let's do this with 5. Okay. An additional important aspect of this is the tagging system. There may only be certain things in the scenario that we want to record, as there are many things going on within our map. And so what we can do is use the tag system to cull the things that we're not interested in. So in this case, we want definitely to record anything that's marked as vehicle, and perhaps we want to also record anything else that's marked as dynamic. So additionally, we can specify undesired tags. So let's say we had vehicles in our scene, but vehicles that are static. For example, we have a bunch of parked cars. We obviously don't really care about those parked cars, so let's go ahead and set those to static, and set the undesired tags to static, which these vehicles are marked as. And so now we shouldn't get any additional vehicles, such as any of those vehicles in the recording. So one additional thing we'll want to do is mark our selected vehicle as the ego vehicle. So this is a very important tag. This is used by the replay system to identify which vehicle it should attach the sensors and control system to. And so in this case, this is the vehicle we'd like to do that. So we'll mark it as ego. Okay, now that we've recorded, now that we've set up our recording mechanism and our scenario, we probably want to save our map. So we'll just save the current map. Now when we select play, and our scenario plays out, we'll get a recording of the file. Great, so we can basically let that play out as long as we like, and once we select the stop button, now we have a saved recording of our scenario.